You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's REI Marketing Nerds podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. How are you, people? I hope you are doing awesome. As I'm recording this, we are heading into the holiday season. It is freezing out in Connecticut. And I got to be honest, I'm sort of like my head's all topsy-turvy. I barely know what's up, what's down. And it's been a wild couple of weeks. I was actually out in San Diego recently for a really high-level real estate investing mastermind. Got to meet a lot of awesome people, some current clients, some past clients, really intense, kind of extremely high-level, high-performing real estate investors. Really interesting crowd. If you've ever been around like 100 of those people at once, it's pretty cool how they all kind of figure each other out and get along. And just had a blast, learned a ton. And I came back and I was thinking about how I could distill down what I picked up at that mastermind for the podcast. And, most of you guys know, like, I'm a marketing person. I'm not a real estate person, right? I came into the real estate market kind of in a roundabout way. I always say, like, I let my clients do the deals, right? I'm the ads guy. I'm the marketing guy. And, to be honest, a lot of the stuff that people are talking about, people are discussing there, it's kind of above my pay grade, right? It's sort of deep real estate stuff. There are a ton of other awesome real estate investing podcasts you can go out and find for that stuff. I really wanted to find the angle that I could do that's going to be unique to me and going to be a kind of thing that my listeners, you wonderful people out there, are going to be interested in. And one of the big overriding themes of this event was the feeling that the market is starting to slow down. Investing markets have been getting tighter. It's been getting harder to find deals. Sellers are less motivated. What's happening with the economy, just a lot of uncertainty, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of a sense of like, how do I adapt to whatever is next? And for me, I came home thinking, all right, what is our plan, at AdWords Nerds, right? What's our plan for our clients? How are we going to adapt for our clients? And it really made me sit down and write out a list of ways that we can save money if things get tight. How do we lower cost per lead? How do I get more for my dollar? And I'm going to share some of the major ones with you. And these are, again, I'm going to try to do this in a way that's going to be relatively channel agnostic, meaning you can use it for any of your online marketing channels, not just for AdWords. But as I often do, I'll probably reference AdWords or Facebook a fair amount of time because that's what I'm most familiar with. But these are things you could use in really any marketing channel. And if you can apply even just one of these processes to your marketing, you're going to save a ton of money over time. I mean, this is one of those things where lots of people talk about it. Very few people actually do it. And even fewer people than that actually do it systematically and regularly. And that is where all the money is. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about this over and over and over again, so I won't belabor the point. But doing a little bit every single day is a lot better than most people are ever going to do. So don't make it too hard. Just get out, take some action. Let's start with money saving process number one, and that is the 80-20 analysis. Okay. We've talked about 80-20 analysis before, this idea that 20% of inputs are going to be 80% of the outputs, right? So like 20% of my ads produce 80% of my leads, 20% of my keywords produce 80% of my clicks, 20% of my marketing produces 80% of my deals, right? Whatever it is. And This has become popularized over time. Tim Ferriss has talked about this a lot, really kind of blew it up. There's a really great book that's called The 80-20 Principle. That was kind of the first book on this to really, make this concept a mainstream thing. I highly recommend that if you want to look into it more. But a lot of people get hung up on the actual numbers 80-20. And I'm going to be honest, like in most of the marketing that we do in the most motivated seller space, it doesn't really work out that way. It's not like 80-20 exactly. Instead, I want you to think of this as just kind of a mental model where you say, what tiny number of inputs produce a large chunk of my outputs? You're looking for leverage. You're looking for areas where things are imbalanced. And that is going to save you a ton of money. Well, why is that? Well, I'll give you an example. We were running ads for an investor here in Connecticut and spent not a ton of money, but let's say he spent something like $5,000 over 5 months. I'm making that number up, but it's basically ballpark, right? So spending about $1,000 a month. Not nothing, but nowhere near, what we would call a big budget for motivated sellers. And, he was crushing it in the beginning. Did a ton of transactions, really happy. And lead quality kind of dropped off for whatever reason in the 4th and 5th month. So we kind of paused it. We did some Facebook. Didn't really like the way that Facebook was looking. We came back to AdWords. And so the question was like, all right, how do we get the lead quality up in AdWords? How do we get the lead volume up without spending as much money as we were spending before? Right. And I went through and I was like, all right, I'm going to start with an 80-20 analysis. Look at all the historical data from the account and say, what 20% of the things that I did in this account, and again, not exactly 20%, but what small number of things that I did inside this account produced the vast majority of my results? Now, let's say I was targeting, and again, I don't know the exact number. Let's say I'm targeting about 100 keywords. Well, I just filtered those keywords in AdWords and I said, which of these have actually produced a lead? Which of these have produced a conversion, right? And it turns out of 100, it's really about 30 that had produced conversions. Everything else in that account had not produced a conversion yet. And this is over a course of 5 months. So I was like, look, 5 months, pretty good chunk of time. It's very likely that some of these were going to convert, later during the course of the year. But these guys that have converted within 5 months, those are kind of like my A team. So I just paused everything else. I paused 70% of the keywords we were targeting. All right. Now, let's say I wanted to take that even further. All right. When I look at just those 30 keywords that are converting, out of those, a significant chunk of those had only ever produced one lead. So most of these are producing one lead a piece over the course of that 5 months. And I'm like, this is, they're good keywords to produce a lead. That's awesome. But, are the likelihood that they're going to produce another lead in the next 6 months is maybe low. If you look at those remaining keywords, the ones that have produced more than 2 or 3 conversions, there's really only a tiny number. I think it was literally like 6 had produced 2 or more conversions. So if I wanted to be really, really, really price conscious, I want to be really conservative with my spend, I can just run the keywords that have produced 2 or 3 or more conversions apiece. That's going to leave me 6 keywords out of my initial 100. This is going to cut my spend by an absolute ton. What we actually ended up doing, we didn't end up doing that. What we ended up doing was just running the stuff that had converted, including the stuff that had converted at least one time. Okay. So we went from about 100 keywords to about 30 because I didn't want to throttle it all the way to the ground there. Now, when you look at the amount that those other 70 keywords had spent, the ones that had never converted, it was about $2,000. So remember, that's 2/5, almost 1/2 of his entire spend was being spent on these keywords that had never produced a lead. By cutting those, I essentially cut his spend in half while keeping his lead flow the same. Now, I'm not saying you always want to do that. That's a strategy, like I said, that is prioritizing saving money over generating the highest possible volume because he was very profitable. But something you want to be aware of. Again, this 80-20 analysis, this idea of how can I cut or how can I focus on the small percentage of things that are producing the biggest percentage of my outcomes. Really, really powerful, really strong strategy if things are tightening up and you feel like money is tight. This is kind of an aside, But when the market gets tight or when things get tough or, business is slower than you want, people tend to cut at that point, right? You got to cut your expenses. And so what do people cut? A lot of times they cut marketing. And this is not a smart move, right? This is not a smart move. Cutting marketing because your business is slow is essentially like saying I'm drowning, so I'm going to hold my breath. It doesn't actually help you survive, right? It is maybe going to keep you alive a tiny bit longer, but you are not spending your time getting to the surface where you can actually breathe again. It doesn't matter. So when things are tough, the question is not how do I cut my marketing out? The question is how do I make my marketing better? All right. So money saving tip number 1, 80-20 analysis.
Are you an investor who wants to dominate your local market? Do you want more leads and deals online? Then download your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint absolutely free at www.adwordsnerds.com/gift. What are you waiting for? Go to www.adwordsnerds.com/gift right now to get your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint.
Money saving tip number 2 for your marketing is segmentation. Segmentation is basically about dividing your marketing audiences up into segments and saying, where is the money actually coming from? All right. The way we'll typically do this online is by things like demographics. So you might look at your audience by age. It might be that all your deals actually come from people that are 40 to 50 years old. I don't know if that's true, but that might be true. So if that's the case, cut everybody else out. It might be that all your deals come from women. Interesting to know. It might be that almost all your deals come from a certain zip code. Now, online, you can get this even more specific and you can start to get into the device that they use. So are they using a mobile device? Are they on a desktop computer? Are they on a tablet? On channels like Facebook, you can look at placements. So are your leads coming from the Facebook timeline, or are they coming from Facebook Messenger, or are they coming from Instagram, or are those other placements just wasting your money, as is often the case? Knowing this allows you to say okay, all of these might be doing okay, but my biggest demographic segment is women and my biggest device segment is mobile. So if you really want to cut, but keep a lot of that effectiveness, you target women and you target mobile, and then bam, you've got your 2 highest performing audiences and you've cut everything else out. It's kind of like a Venn diagram. You picture a Venn diagram, there's like those circles that overlap, and it's the area that where the overlap is, it's really, really powerful. Same thing with segmentation. You think about how many ways can I slice and dice the leads that I'm generating? Time of day of the week, all these things. And the deeper you segment and the more you overlap those segments over each other, the more finely grained you get. Now, like anything else, right, we have to be careful because all these things are going to save us money. You can always save money by cutting down your marketing. But the problem is when you cut down your marketing, you sacrifice volume, right? If you're trying to do 4 or 5 deals a month, you really can't cut too deeply and expect there to be a ton of deals there, right? At some point, you're going to need to generate volume. And a lot of times volume and price effectiveness or price efficiency or cost efficiency, they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Not always, but often. And you kind of got to choose one or the other. So you want to make sure that all this works with your goals, but doing an 80-20 analysis like we talked about in tip number 1, and then really segmenting your audiences down like we talked about in tip number 2 are 2 major ways to cut your costs. All right, tip number 3, look into other channels. So there's a general marketing principle that I think about all the time, which is the blue ocean strategy. This is not the people that came up with this, but there's a really good book called Blue Ocean Strategy that you can go out and pick up. It's one of those New York Times bestselling business books, so you may have heard of it. But it's a pretty simple idea. The blue ocean strategy idea is in the ocean, you have a blue ocean, which is there's just not a lot of fish around and everything's nice and blue and clear and cool. And, It's pretty chill, right? Now, a red ocean is where there's a lot of fish and a lot of activity. And all that fish and activity draws sharks. And sharks tend to fight to get those fish, and they compete to eat, and the blood and guts, it fills up the water and it makes it a red ocean. All right. So this idea here is like, well, would you rather be in the red ocean where you're fighting with a whole bunch of sharks, or would you rather be in the blue ocean where it's pretty chill? And most of us would prefer to be in the blue ocean, right? Provided we can find enough to eat. Well, applying this to business, the idea is like, you should really spend your time going where your competitors aren't going. It's a lot easier to be the only person in a given channel, or one of a few people in a given channel, than it is to be someone in a channel where there is intense levels of competition. And right now, in most online advertising platforms, there's an intense level of competition. AdWords, a lot of competition. Facebook competition has been rising very steadily and has been increasing the rate of increase pretty much day over day, week over week. So we have these two channels where most investors are, and most investors are spending most of their money, and they're having trouble because it's a red ocean, right? It's highly competitive. A lot of other investors. So prices are high. Motivated sellers see a lot of ads from investors, et cetera. Now, you can interpret the blue ocean strategy in a couple different ways, right? One might be, okay, I'm going to do a type of ad or an approach that no one else is doing. So you could do that within those channels, right? Just take a totally different approach. But I actually think it's easier to just find a different channel and make it your own. There are a lot of advertising channels that almost nobody is using right now. And I almost don't want to talk about it because I'm always like, to be honest, like behind the scenes, like we are working very hard to make these channels work and crack them, because I'm like, whoever does this is going to make a ton of money and I want it to be us, right? But I'll tell you because you're cool. You keep it between us. Okay. Well, like, it's not a secret, right? Google Display Network. Clicks on Google Display Network are less than $1 right now. Google AdWords, they're about, I don't know, $10 national average, $7 to $12, something like that. So pennies for the same amount of traffic on Google Display Network. Same thing on YouTube. YouTube traffic is ridiculously cheap. YouTube has basically so much inventory for ads, they cannot sell it fast enough. And so prices on YouTube haven't gone up in like 5 years. There's no market anywhere right now where prices have not gone up in 5 years. It's really, really out of the ordinary. That's not even to get into some of the weirder ad channels like Taboola and Outbrain and all the stuff you haven't even talked about. Yahoo Gemini just recently launched. Bing, certainly there are investors in Bing, but a lot fewer, I should say, than there are in AdWords or Facebook. So these are very high potential channels. And even if you just dedicate a little bit of money to it and you kind of put some time into trying to figure it out, lot of potential to really disrupt your market. And the thing is like, if everybody else is struggling to make do, but you're paying 1/10 to get your leads of everyone else, guess what? You're going to kick everybody's butt. And you're going to be way more capable of withstanding market disruptions, right? The housing market collapses or whatever. Your business model is going to be way more stable because you're expending way less money and effort to get those leads. And look, I got to say, it's not the easiest thing in the world to make those channels work. And obviously, the more that we learn about it, the more I'll share with you. But I think there's a huge amount of potential there and certainly worth the investment of either time or money to make it happen. So those are 3 major tips you can use right now, sort of protect your business against a possible economic downturn, make your marketing more efficient, lower your cost per lead, generally lower your anxiety level. I think it's something that we're thinking about a lot. We're thinking about a lot for our clients. We use these exact mental models all the time. So if you get some use out of it, that would make me really happy. Let me know. Leave me a comment, shoot me a message. Look, if you're not in our Facebook group, first of all, you should absolutely be in our Facebook group. It's free. I post in there multiple times a week. We do trainings, we do lives. We do all sorts of awesome stuff. It's a lot of fun. Tons of investors sharing tips and tricks on online marketing. It's the REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group. You can get there by going to adwordsnerds.com/group. And as always, you can find kind of show notes and links and all the other episodes for this podcast at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. And I would love if you get some value out of the show and you enjoy it. Please head over wherever you find your podcast. Just give us a like, give us a review, subscribe to the show. It helps other people find it, and I really appreciate it. And let me know. Find me on Facebook, drop me a line. I'd be happy to talk to you. And I hope you have an awesome, awesome rest of your week. If I don't talk to you before the holidays, have an awesome holiday. And I will be talking to you very soon. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.